The 60-day notice was typed on printer paper and taped to my cabin door with a single strip of packing tape. Not certified mail. Not hand-delivered with a conversation. Tape. I peeled it off carefully, read it twice standing on the porch in the November cold with my mail carrier jacket still on from my route, and then I folded it in thirds and put it in my jacket pocket next to my route sheet and walked inside. My name is Sera Pullman. I'm 29 years old. I carry mail on rural Route 4 out of the Gatlinburg post office in Sevier County, Tennessee. 63 miles of two-lane roads, gravel driveways, and mailboxes mounted on fence posts, 5 days a week, starting at 6:40 a.m. I know every driveway on that route. I know which dogs run the fence line and which ones are all bark. I know the Hendersons on box 14 get their insulin by mail, and I hold it if the weather turns icy and drive it over myself on my day off. I know my county. I know who owns what on which parcel. That knowledge, it turned out, was about to matter considerably. My grandmother, Lorraine Pullman, died in April at 81 years old in the house she'd lived in since 1967. A 3-bedroom farmhouse on 11 acres outside of Pigeon Forge that my grandfather built with 2 cousins and a level he still had in the garage when he died. She left behind 4 grandchildren, 1 surviving son, my Uncle Beau, and an estate that her attorney, a quiet man named Harris Falk, had been administering out of a small office on Parkway Road for 40 years. She also left behind a will that no one had read carefully except her. I didn't know that yet. I knew only what my brother Cole had told me at the funeral reception, standing in the church fellowship hall with a plate of funeral potatoes in his hand, that Grandma had left the cabin on Piney Creek Road to me and the farmhouse and acreage to Uncle Beau, and the rest divided between the 4 grandchildren equally. Cole had said it the way he says most things, like the information was his to dispense. He's 33, 4 years older, and he has operated since childhood on the theory that being older meant being in charge of the narrative. I had long since stopped correcting that theory. Cost me too much and changed nothing. She loved you most, he said, eating a forkful of potatoes. The cabin's a good thing. I know, I said. I loved her too. The cabin on Piney Creek Road had been my grandmother's summer place. A 2-room structure on half an acre of pine and rhododendron, 7 miles from the farmhouse, with a wood stove and a screened porch and a creek you could hear from the bed on quiet nights. She'd bought it in 1984 for $18,000. I had spent parts of every summer there from age 6 until Grandma got too frail to make the drive, and when I took the job with the Postal Service and moved back to Sevier County 4 years ago, she had given me a key and said use it whenever you need quiet. I had used it. Before I tell you what happened next, have you ever inherited something that felt like being finally, truly seen by someone who is gone? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. Cole called me on a Thursday evening in early November, 3 weeks after the estate had been formally distributed. So Jessica and I have been talking, he said. Jessica Marlowe had been Cole's girlfriend for 14 months. A woman who arrived in conversations sideways, introduced as a detail and then gradually expanding until she occupied the center of the frame. She had opinions about real estate. She had mentioned twice that I'd heard that a cabin in the Smokies could generate significant short-term rental income. Hey, I said. We think it makes more sense for us to take the cabin. You're single, you have your apartment in town. We could really use the space. I sat with that for a moment. The wood stove smell of the cabin came to me from memory. Pine resin and ash and the particular cold that lives in mountain structures between uses. That's not how inheritance works, Cole. Grandma would have wanted. Grandma left me the cabin. In a will. With an attorney. You can still sign it over. It's a family decision. It's not a family decision. It's a legal document. He was quiet for a beat. Then his voice shifted. Flatter, like he'd already made a decision and was now just informing me of it. I've already talked to Harris Falk. There are options. What options? Just think about it. We'll talk. He hung up. The taped notice appeared on my door 9 days later. I read it in my postal jacket on the porch, and then I went inside and made coffee and sat at the small table by the window that looks out toward the creek. The notice claimed that the property had been transferred to Jessica Marlowe by agreement of the estate. It cited no document. It referenced no deed. It gave me 60 days. I am not an attorney. I am a mail carrier. But I have delivered enough certified mail from county offices in Sevier County to know what a legitimate property transfer looks like, and this was not it. I called Harris Falk the next morning at 8:05 a.m. when his office opened. "Mr. Falk," I said. "My name is Sera Pullman. Lorraine was my grandmother. I received a notice claiming the Piney Creek cabin has been transferred. I need to understand if that's possible." "Pause. Miss Pullman. I've been expecting you might call." "Excuse me. Your brother contacted me last week. I want you to know that I declined to take any action on his behalf. The property was clearly designated to you in the will and the deed has already transferred. There is nothing to undo." I let that sit for a moment. He told me there were options. He asked about options. I explained there were none. "The transfer is complete. The cabin is yours." "Hey," I said. "There is, however, something else I've been meaning to contact you about. A second matter in your grandmother's estate that I haven't yet had the opportunity to discuss." I set down my coffee mug. "What second matter?" Harris Falk's office on Parkway Road smelled like old paper and good coffee, the particular smell of a space where important things have been handled quietly for a long time. He was 70 years old, methodical, and had the hands of a man who had spent his career turning over documents in careful sequence. He opened a manila folder on his desk and slid it toward me. "Your grandmother purchased a second parcel in 1991, he said. 7 acres on the ridge above Piney Creek Road. She paid $11,400. She has been paying property taxes on it continuously since purchase." He tapped a line on the document. "She designated it to you in the same codicil as the cabin. It was a later addition, added in 2019 when she updated the will. I should have included it in the initial distribution summary. That was an omission on my part and I apologize." I looked at the parcel map he slid across next. 7 acres of ridgeline above the creek. Mature hardwood and pine. Road access from a gravel easement off Piney Creek Road. Assessed value, $94,000. "She never mentioned it," I said. "No. She was private about it. She bought it because she didn't want it developed and she left it to you for the same reason. She told me, and I wrote this down at the time because I thought it would matter eventually. She said, 'Sera is the only one who will leave it alone.'" I sat in that office for a long moment. The paper under my hands was real. The parcel number was real. The signature at the bottom was my grandmother's. The same looping L in Lorraine she'd put on every birthday card she'd ever sent me. She had left me 2 properties. Cole didn't know. Jessica didn't know. I did. I want to tell you about the week between that meeting and what happened next, because it wasn't triumphant. Not yet. I drove back to the cabin after leaving Harris Falk's office and I sat on the screened porch in the cold with a blanket and a mug of tea and I tried to locate what I was feeling, and what I found was complicated. There was something like relief, the clean relief of a foundation that holds when you test it. But underneath it was something older and less clean. Cole and I had not always been like this. When we were children, before our parents divorced and reconfigured themselves into separate households with separate loyalties, we had been close the way siblings are close when there isn't yet anything to divide. He used to carry me on his back on the trail to the cabin. He taught me to fish in the creek with a line and a hook in patience he no longer seemed to have. I didn't know what Jessica had told him to make him think this was acceptable. I didn't know if he believed the notice would work or if he'd known all along it was hollow and had been hoping I wouldn't look closely. Both possibilities were worse than the other depending on the day. What I knew was this. My grandmother had purchased 7 acres of ridge above my cabin in 1991 and paid taxes on it for 32 years and told her attorney that I was the only one who would leave it alone. And she was right and she was gone, and the folder with both deeds was now sitting on my kitchen table. I pressed my hands flat on the rough wood of the porch railing. Thought. I wasn't going to call him. I was going to let him come to me. He came on a Saturday. Jessica's car in the gravel pull-off first. A white SUV with a Gatlinburg rental platform sticker on the back window that she had apparently not removed from a previous vehicle or had added preemptively. I wasn't sure which and it didn't matter. Cole's truck behind it. I was on the porch when they came up the path. The November air smelled like pine resin and cold creek water and wood smoke from the stove I'd had going since morning. I had the manila folder on the side table next to my coffee. I didn't stand. I waited. Cole came up the steps first. He had the expression he gets when he's committed to something and is too far in to recalibrate gracefully. Chin slightly forward, eyes slightly narrowed. Jessica was behind him, wearing a jacket that was too light for the elevation. Sera, he said. We need to talk about the transition. Hey, I said. Harris Falk was wrong to try to freeze us out. We're going to dispute the designation. Jessica has already talked to another attorney. Cole. I picked up the folder. Sit down for a second. He didn't sit. But he stopped talking, which was enough. I met with Harris last week, I said. He told me about your call. He also told me about something else. I opened the folder and held up the second deed, the parcel map on top, clear and unmistakable. Grandma left me the cabin in the Ridge parcel. 7 acres. Assessed at $94,000. Clean title, continuous taxes paid since 1991. Jessica took a step forward. Looked at the map. That's not in the estate summary, she said. It was an omission. Harris corrected it. Both deeds are in my name. The transfers are complete. Cole looked at the folder. Then at me. Then at the folder again. Why didn't you say anything? He said. You taped a notice to my door, I said. With packing tape. I didn't think we were having a conversation. We could have. No. I set the folder on my knee. Here's what I want you to understand. I didn't fight you. I didn't threaten you. I made an appointment with an attorney, I read the documents, and I let the legal records speak. I looked at him steadily. Grandma left me this cabin because she trusted me with it. She left me the Ridge for the same reason. If you'd asked me, if you had called me and said, can we talk about this, I would have talked. We could have figured something out together. But you taped a notice to my door. Cole's jaw moved. Jessica thought. I know what Jessica thought. I looked at her. She looked back. Her expression had shifted into something more careful. I don't have anything against you. But this property isn't available. It was never available. Silence. The creek ran below the porch in the quiet. A woodpecker knocked twice somewhere in the pines. I want you to leave now, I said. And I want you to call Harris Falk on Monday and confirm that you're withdrawing any claim. If you do that, we can figure out how to be at Christmas. If you don't, I'll let my attorney handle the rest. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I sat on my grandmother's porch with her deed in my hand and said exactly what was true. Jessica turned first. Cole stood a moment longer, and I saw something cross his face, brief and real, that looked less like anger and more like grief. I recognized it. I had been carrying a version of it myself all week. Then he turned and followed her down the path. Harris Falk called me the following Wednesday. Your brother withdrew, he said. Called Monday morning. He was civil. Good, I said. Miss Pullman, for what it's worth. Your grandmother talked about you often. The last time I saw her, about 6 months before she passed, she said she hoped the Ridge would still be standing in 100 years. She seemed to think you were the person most likely to make that happen. I sat with that for a long moment. Tell me about the Ridge, I said. What's on it? He described it. Mature second-growth hardwood, a seasonal spring on the upper quarter, a natural overlook facing southwest with a view of the main Smoky ridgeline on clear days. No structures. No improvements. Just land that had been left alone for 32 years by a woman who understood that some things are worth more quiet than developed. I drove up the access easement that Sunday with my boots and a thermos of coffee, and I walked the Ridge for 2 hours in the cold November light, stepping over roots and stopping at the overlook to drink my coffee and look at the mountains. The wind smelled like ice and pine in distance. My grandmother had stood here. I was sure of it. She had bought this parcel at 63 years old and paid taxes on it for 32 years and never built anything and never told anyone and left it to the one grandchild she trusted not to ruin it. That is a kind of love that doesn't announce itself. Cole texted in December. Mom said you're not coming home for Christmas. Can we talk? I thought about it for 2 days. Then I called him. I'll come, I said. But I need you to hear something first. Okay. You taped a notice to my door. That's the thing I need you to sit with. Not the cabin, the notice. Like I was a tenant who'd overstayed. Like what Grandma left me was yours to reassign. Silence. I know, he said. Finally. Quiet. I know. Jessica put the idea in your head but you signed off on it. That's the part that's yours. Yeah. Pause. I'm sorry, Sera. I believed him. Not because the apology was perfect. It wasn't. but because I know my brother's voice when he means something, and this was the voice he uses when he means it. I'll be there Christmas Eve, I said. We'll figure out the rest. Here's what I know now. 1. A deed is a fact. Opinions about who deserves property are not. When someone tries to override a fact with an opinion, the answer is to go find the fact and hold it up. 2. The people who act first and loudest are usually counting on you not to look closely. Look closely, boys. 3. Some gifts are left quietly because the person giving them knew what the noise would do to them. Receive the quiet ones. Protect them. The ridge is mine. I go up on Sunday mornings sometimes when the weather's good and I've finished my route prep early, boots and coffee and the access easement through the pines. The overlook faces southwest. On clear days you can see the main ridgeline from there, the blue-gray shape of it against the sky. My grandmother bought that land for $11,400 in 1991 and left it alone for 32 years. I plan to do the same. I'm Sera. I kept what I was given and I finally understood why. Have you ever had someone try to take something your family left you, banking on the fact that you wouldn't know your own rights? Tell me in the comments. I'm reading every one. This story is entirely fictional. All characters and events are fictional entertainment content. AI-assisted narration. AI-generated thumbnail.